Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Saturday, October 28th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Wisconsin game is today. The game against Michigan in 28 days. For once, we're actually going to be talking about the Wisconsin game and not anything to do with Michigan. There was not a ton of news on Friday on that front. So we're going to actually talk a little Ohio State football. We're doing that with our buddy Kevin Noon. If you're wondering, why are these guys just sitting on a couch in a weirdly lit room? We are on the road. We are actually in Wisconsin right now, ready to cover that game on Saturday night. We were up in Madison just a little bit ago, just headed back to our hotel after getting a chance to, number one, make sure, yes, the Buckeyes are in fact in Wisconsin, as we are as well. Got a chance also to talk to Ryan Day a little bit, and it sounds like there is good news on the injury front for TreVeyon Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, and Denzel Burke.
Seeing all of them get off the bus is good news. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see all of them potentially in the game, but I think they're all far enough along because, remember, you can only travel so many players, and it is Big Ten football, and you are a couple months into the season at this point, and guys are banged up, and you don't want to bring somebody on the trip just for the hell of it. Hey, why don't you just come aboard, hang out? You want everybody you bring, you have to be ready largely to play them. So I think it is good news as Ohio State gets ready to take on a Badger team at Camp Randall, a place where strange things do happen from time to time.
Yeah, this is another one of those Big Ten West venues where you have seen Ohio State lose every once in a while, but they have not lost Wisconsin in a hot minute. 2010, the last time they lost, and that was a number one Ohio State team coming up here and gave up an opening kickoff return for a touchdown. They were down 14-0 like 5 minutes into that game. Yeah, so that was a weird one. Saturday night, it feels like it would probably take something a little weird for Wisconsin to beat Ohio State. Buckeyes favored by, 2 touchdowns, give or take?
14 and a half, I think is what I saw on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, so a little bit over 2 touchdown favorites. This is not a vintage Wisconsin team, and that's true in a couple different ways. Number one, this is not a team that's going to go 12-1 and go to the Rose Bowl or something like that. They've already got a couple losses. It also is going to, if you have not watched Wisconsin this year, this is a very different offense. This is no longer the 240-pound running back between the tackles 40 times and then maybe throw it 15 or 18 times. It's not a great Wisconsin offense, but it's a different Wisconsin offense.
And the thing is that I think Luke Fickell is having to make the adjustment as he tries to modernize what it is that Wisconsin does, but he's trying to modernize it with the weapons that Paul Chryst had. And then when quarterback Tanner Mordecai was hurt, broken hand, out for the year, they have to bring in Braden Locke, who had his first career start against Illinois, led a comeback win where he was largely ineffective early in the game. Jer'Zhan Newton, the talented defensive end for Illinois, got tossed for targeting and was able to heat up at that point. It's still going to be a team that is going to run the ball with Braylon Allen, but even talking about the running game, remember, Wisconsin lost Ches Malusi early in the year, so there is not much depth behind him at this point. The Malusi was the number 2 rusher. Tanner Mordecai was the number 3 rusher. So now they're down even further. So we don't see a lot of games where a back is getting 30-plus carries. Could we see that in this case? I don't know. I guess it depends on how the game goes. I guess it depends on what type of success that Allen has against the Buckeyes. Ohio State faced Allen last year, really picked up most of his yardage late in the game on a bad angle by an Ohio State safety that sprung him for a huge gain. And I had 80 yards in the game. Well, you had most of them at that one point. So I don't know what we're going to make out of it. But yeah, to your point, it is an offense that is very much in transition. This isn't what you should expect next year or the year after, but you're kind of in that situation where you have 1 foot in the pool and 1 foot not in the pool.
Yeah, it's a little like the teams that are going, into the air raid. The first year that Mike Leach got to Washington State, and it was like, well, we don't have the personnel to run this yet. And you sort of have that weird, like, well, we're going to run it anyway, and it's just going to look like crap, and that's just kind of how it is. This is a talented enough team that it doesn't look like crap, and they're 5-2, so it's okay, but it's not what it's ultimately going to be. And one of the reasons is They want to throw the ball. Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator, wants to throw the ball. He has run up-tempo, air raid style. That's what he ran at North Carolina. He does not have Drake May on this team. He doesn't even have the North Carolina talented.
He doesn't even have Mark
receivers.
May.
He doesn't even have Mark May. He doesn't necessarily have the North Carolina level receivers even this year. This is a little bit, when you look at this team, the offensive line's solid, good. The quarterback is young. The running backs are, the running back at least, good. The wide receivers are maybe just kind of okay. This is all sounding very much like a team that Ohio State just played last weekend.
Right, exactly. There are some comparisons when you look at what the construction of the offensive side of the ball looks like with Penn State. Now, I think much higher of Drew Aller than I do of Braden Locke. I think that Braylon Allen as a running back is much more established than Katron Allen or Nick Singleton were. I think that maybe I would give a little bit of an edge to Penn State's receivers. Really, right now, the most productive of all the receivers for Wisconsin is a Cincinnati transfer that came over with Luke in Will Pauling. They do have. And I knew the name was going to Chimere Dike. They still have Chimere Dike, who has not necessarily had a big year at this point. So it'll be interesting. And I think one spot too of where we got used to seeing out of older Wisconsin teams is they're always going to have a tight end. I think Penn State had a better tight end with 44 than what I've seen out of Wisconsin so far this year.
Looking at Wisconsin's offense, it feels like I think all of us predicted Wisconsin to score like 13 or 14 points. Almost like we ended up independently all on almost exactly the same number. And it feels like if Wisconsin's going to get this into the low 20s, mid 20s, even up to 28, that probably involves turnovers. Forcing turnovers from Ohio State, and you get a scoop and score, you get a pick six, you just get it, you hand your offense a 17-yard drive, whatever it is. It feels like if Wisconsin's going to get into the 20s, the defense is probably going to have to play a pretty direct role in that.
Yeah, I'm really not sure how Wisconsin gets into the 20s without some help from Ohio State. Obviously, special teams can play a role there. I mean, we just talked about 2010 and what happened in that game, but this is not an explosive Wisconsin offense. Certainly not in terms of going against Ohio State's defense. And you can look at some numbers and say, well, you look at the rankings and Wisconsin's done this, this, and this. Wisconsin plays on the lesser half of the Big Ten. Yes, everybody does have their 3 crossover games, but we're not to that point of the season. Obviously, Wisconsin played Washington State, which I think was a little bit of a step up in competition compared to certainly what it's facing in the West right now. But I think that this is going to be a major increase in terms of level of competition for Wisconsin than what it has been used to playing. So if both these teams kind of play straight up, and let's just even sit there and say they both play B games, it's probably not going to be close. I think that Wisconsin needs to play a much higher game and hope that Ohio State is a little flat and maybe spending a little too much time paying attention to what's happening in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable question about the Buckeyes coming off the big win over Penn State. What has the focus been on this week inside the walls of Woody? Ryan Day got off the bus in Ann Arbor, in Madison. See, I'm doing it too. Got off the bus in Madison and said, hey, good week of practice and all that. We have seen the post-Penn State hangover before, and I know that we have all spent a lot more time thinking about the Michigan scandal this week and talking about the Michigan scandal this week than we have about the Wisconsin Badgers. And we have seen the post-Penn State road trip out to a Big Ten West school not go great for Ohio State in the past. How big of a concern is the focus for you?
I think it's always a concern when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. I mean, obviously you have like a 48-year-old in Jesse Mirko, but, you're dealing with a lot of kids at this point, and it's maybe not that they're necessarily going out and searching for it, but their family, their friends, everybody else is looking about. It's like, can you believe what's going on up there? In a situation that we have a lot more speculation than we have facts known at this point, but it does look like, not to turn this into a Michigan talk show, but it does look pretty ugly about what might go down up there. So there is going to be that concern. I think the fact that Ohio State never really was challenged by Penn State. This isn't going to be a situation of where Ohio State had to come back and beat Penn State on a exciting fourth quarter drive or anything like that, and you're all up, and up. I think that they were able to go about their business, win the game, and we'll learn a lot, basically, of how they come out. And again, this is a team that has started pretty slow in almost all of its games, so you're not going to watch it and be like, see, I told you they came out like crap because they were not focused. But if it prolongs, and I heard you and Tony talk about it in another show, if it's 6-3 at halftime or whatever, then okay, the focus wasn't where it needed to be.
This feels like a game where Ohio State can probably out-talent Wisconsin to a certain degree, and it really, to me, is about don't make the big mistake. Don't have the strip sack that goes back for 6 points. Don't throw the pick six. When you're in the red zone, make sure you're getting points and make sure you're getting sevens more than threes. You can kick field goals because this is not a Wisconsin team that's going to win a shootout. You can kick field goals, but you got to convert some sevens too. You don't want a bunch of empty possessions. You don't want missed field goals. You don't want a bunch of missed fourth downs in the red zone. If you don't make the big mistake, if you don't have multiple empty red zone possessions, if you don't have multiple turnovers or a turnover that goes back for a score, I don't know that I see a real plausible path. You don't make the big mistake on special teams, I guess, is the other thing. Without one of those, I don't know that I see a real plausible path to Wisconsin winning this game unless Ohio State really comes out and is just missing even the basic throws, even the basic runs.
Illinois was up a couple of scores on Wisconsin and fell apart. Ohio State certainly can't do that. And that game, I believe, was in Champaign. This game is obviously in Madison. You can't let the fans hang around and jump around at the start of the fourth quarter is meaningful because it is a tied game or Wisconsin's only down a possession or something, or even worse scenario, Wisconsin is up, because at that point then everybody starts to press, and that's where upsets happen at that point. You need to be able to impose your will. You need to be able to go out and play your brand of football, play your style of football, have the success, and be able to kind of accelerate in. It's a lot better as the road team to be the ones doing the jumping around at the start of the fourth quarter, as opposed to the Badgers doing it, saying that we sense blood in the water.
Yeah, you have seen the Ohio State teams doing the jump around, and I remember Malcolm Jenkins looking like he was doing like an Irish jig on the sideline. If you're up 2 touchdowns, like that's a real fun, like, hey, what a fun whimsical college football thing. If Wisconsin's up or it's a tie game and it is squeaky bum time, as they say in British soccer, then the students are going nuts and you're not having so much fun on your sideline. So, if the Buckeyes get off to a solid start and a nice early lead, it feels like this could be a nice, easy early night. If it drags on, it could get a little more dramatic. I'm sure Ohio State fans are hoping nothing spooky happens. Saturday night in Madison, Halloween weekend, should be a fun atmosphere. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a loud, raucous atmosphere. Prime time. They have. We were in Madison. It seemed like they had a bar or two in town. So fans
always next to a bike shop.
Yeah, always next to a bike shop for some reason. But yeah, it should be a loud, raucous atmosphere. The fans should be very into it for whatever reason, football related or not. Kickoff 7:33 p.m. Eastern Time, according to our friends at the Ohio State Sports Information Department. You can watch the game on NBC, and then you can watch the post-game show at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have picked up a ton of subscribers this week. For whatever reason, I don't know, people are interested in something. Who's to say? Ring that bell. Make sure that'll get you notified when we post and we do that live post-game show. We will, of course, have our pregame discussion of the availability report, the injury report, coming to you about 2 hours before kick, give or take, when that availability report comes out. So you'll want to be paying attention to that as well. So you can find all that at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.